just want people to know that if they're going through a hard time or if they're feeling discouraged out here, it's like there's a reason for that. We're in the Olympics of doing the kind of work we want to do. So, um, finding people who love and support you, getting the help that you need. If you have any kind of like, I know myself, I personally struggle with anxiety and depression, and it just went through the roof when I moved out here. So if you do struggle with those things, really getting the help that you need, because if you aren't a healthy whole human, you can't be a healthy working artist.
If you're a professional actor challenged by an increasingly fragmented industry, then this podcast is for you. The Hollywood Actor Podcast is an anthology made up of the stories of actors building their bodies of work by redefining themselves, reframing their goals, and reevaluating their opportunities. No matter where we are in our careers, we're always looking to be inspired and to share ourselves across our community. This podcast will offer that opportunity to guests and listeners alike as we all discover what it means to be a working, professional, successful actor. This is Jamie Young, and you're listening to the Hollywood Actor Podcast. Today's guest is Rebekah Wiggins. Rebekah is an actor and teacher who's worked all across the Southwest. She's a certified Chubbuck acting technique teacher and owner of Southwest Scene Works. Her acting credits include the films Let Me In, War on Everyone, and WGN's TV series Manhattan. Rebekah stars in the feature film Iris, currently screening at festivals, and you can follow Iris at iris-movie.com and find Rebekah on IMDb, Facebook, and Instagram. Now let's talk with Hollywood actor Rebekah Wiggins.
My degree is in commercial music and audio engineering. And I found my way to acting I didn't even have a high school drama program. I just knew that I loved it. And so I came about it even a different way than you did, It's interesting how we find our way to the right art.
Right. There's a million paths, and we're still finding that path within us, I think.
Always.
You were born in Frankfurt?
I was, yeah. I was a military kid, so I do have German heritage, but my family, actually, I'm a fifth generation New Mexican, and so that's where I'm originally from, is New Mexico. But yes, I was born in Frankfurt, Germany.
That's fantastic. We had another actress on the podcast, Candace Hammer, and her parents were in the military, so she was born in Landstuhl. And I spent a lot of time over in Germany, at least 5 years, because my dad was stationed at Ramstein in Southwest Germany.
What? That's cool.
Yeah.
Maybe there's something in the air over there in Germany that breeds us actors.
There might be. And then you came to New Mexico when you were super young?
Yeah. By the time I was, so my parents came back they then went to Dallas and had my little sister, Mona, and then moved back to New Mexico. I guess I was 3. My parents got divorced, and but they always stayed in New Mexico so they could be close to us, so both of them could be close to us. And and then I've been in New Mexico the rest of the time. I moved out here to Los Angeles. I started in the New Mexico film industry in the local market there. Found my way to acting through that, and independent producing, and then moved out here 4 years ago.
4 years. All right. You were bouncing between Roswell and Santa Fe for a little bit of that time?
Yeah, that's right. You're good. So much research. I love it. Yeah. My dad's a fine artist. He's a really well-known Southwestern artist. And so I grew up behind the gallery on Canyon Road. And then he and my grandfather owned Wiggins Fine Art on Canyon. And then my mom was in Roswell. That's right. And so I bounced back and forth between the two.
All of that is so interesting because those cities are so different from each other. I don't know.
Oh my gosh.
I'm talking to a lot of people that haven't been to New Mexico that this podcast is reaching to. And so I wanted to illustrate that Roswell is a much smaller town that's in the southern part of the state. And Santa Fe is this very progressive, touristy little bastion of spirituality in the Southwest.
Right.
It attracts so many different people, so many different artists, spiritualists, tourists. It's just a whole different world up there.
Yeah, it really feels like, it's the oldest state capital and was settled by the Spaniards. And so it has this beautiful kind of European feel. I mean, even on Canyon Road, it's like a one-way bricked street because originally it was only built for, horses and carts and stuff. So you go through Santa Fe and you have this kind of European vibe. It's also northern New Mexico is much more democratic. And like you said, like lots of artists and spiritualists. Southern New Mexico feels like you could be, not that there's anything wrong with this, like it's like you could be in West Texas, it's like dairies, oil refineries. My mom actually, my whole life has worked for oil companies, so yeah, totally different feel. You're exactly right.
And then having your father as a fine artist, and then growing up around fine artists and in those galleries, that must have really started you on that path of feeling the art within you and being inspired.
Hmm. Yeah, it did. For a long time as a kid, I thought I wanted to follow in his footsteps and be a fine artist, and I still do some of that. But then I found my own path as I definitely consider it like part of my legacy to be a Southwestern artist. I'm actually in contracts. I just signed contracts to direct my first feature film, which will be starting pre-production in July. And it's like a Western Gothic female-driven feature. So it's going to be cool to like be in that whole template. And I think also in the directing portion of things, having a father who was like in fine art, who's a painter, I think that really helps in composition for shots and stuff like that. So it's funny how these different pieces of your life, even going to music school, right? That's all part of filmmaking as well, is score and emotional feel of the music. So it's funny how these other pieces of your life kind of lead you to exactly where you need to be if you let it, if you don't look at it as like, oh, I wasted my time doing music school, which I definitely was in that zone for a while. It's like I should have done like you did. It's like, oh, I should have done, school for film or should have gone to an acting conservatory. But I think that everything is valuable. Everything in the path and on our journey is valuable.
Yeah. We can find so many different things that we can roll back into that one thing, which film encapsulates, and that's what excites me about film too. Is there's so many different avenues of expression within that
Hmm.
singular art form.
Oh, totally. And it's so collaborative too, right? It's like you're pulling in all of these other artists who are doing maybe these other things, whether it's music or cinematography or art department. And you're pulling all these amazing artists who do different things together to make this one beautiful final product, which the collaboration piece always for me has been something that I enjoy and something that is exciting to me about it as well, for sure.
Yeah, and it's not just bringing these people together or the art forms together, but everything's supportive of that singular product, and everybody's on the same page, bringing their best selves to that one uh, that one experience. Which yeah, that collaborative nature of filmmaking is just it's so vibrant to me and to so many people. What when were you starting to get into acting to find those first acting roles for yourself? I know you were thinking of fine art and then pursuing music in college.
Yeah, it's funny. I think that oftentimes in life, through failing at certain other things, it opens right doors. It's like where one door closes, another one opens. That sort of saying. So I went to music school and I graduated at 19. And really, the only options to start if you wanted to start making a living for yourself as an audio engineer and as a musician when you're first starting out is there weren't really internships at studios. I didn't know anyone or have any connections. And so it would have been being a roadie, like as a 19-year-old girl, like traveling, being a roadie. And I didn't really want to do that. I was like, I just think I was like, I'm a small town kid at heart. And I think it was too scary for me to think of like being gone that much and like not knowing where my next job was coming from. So I actually went to school then for cosmetology and got my license, and I opened up a salon with a friend. That salon ended up failing. The business partnership went really wrong. And so I took, I guess, 6 months where I just like worked at a coffee shop in Artesia, New Mexico, tiny little Artesia, which is smaller than Roswell. I think it's like, I want to say that it's like 16 to 20,000 people that live there. And there was a film technician program at the college in Roswell, New Mexico. And I was like, oh, that's so interesting. Like, I've always wanted to act. I've always wanted to do acting work and be involved in filmmaking, but I didn't know how to do it. I didn't have any connections. I didn't know anyone. And New Mexico is not a hub. Like in Los Angeles, you'll know someone who's on a show and they're like, yeah, I can get you on as a PA, as a young kid, or whatever. And since I had my cosmetology license, which was another good thing for me, I actually got on a set with my now best friend Hannah McPherson, who is a writer director who's just shot her third season of her television series Tagged. And so I got on the set and I just was searching, on the New Mexico Film website. They would post auditions and say, I didn't have an agent or anything. And so they'd post auditions that were happening. And so I wrapped doing, I was asking, all the actors on this film that I was working on, how did you get into it? How did you get started? It was a little over a decade ago. So the film incentives really had just kicked into high gear in New Mexico. And I found an audition for a film and I was like, okay, cool. I'm going to go up to Santa Fe. I'm going to audition for this film. It was, the role was a pregnant woman who found out her husband was cheating on her, and so she ends up shooting him. Really hilarious. So I started prepping that, and then went up to Santa Fe and walked into um, uh, an agent's office for A&M agency, and it was owned by Vince at the time, a man named Vince. And so I walked in and I was like, I want to act. And he gave me some sides and was like, here you go, let's cold read this. I had no idea what that meant, but I was like, reading every book that I could on acting and really trying to like soak up like what it means to be an actor and process and all that sort of stuff since I hadn't done it before. And I read the sides and he was like, yeah, okay, cool, let's sign you. And so he signed me. And then I went to my audition for this film. And I booked the role and ended up working 2 weeks in Santa Fe on this film, on this project. Really intense emotional work, like I said, where I'm like a pregnant woman who ends up shooting her husband. And yeah, and from there, I moved to Albuquerque and just dove into any class that I could get my hands on. Again, I think art is in the doing, and I'm sure you know this too, having gone to school with a lot of artists yourself. I watched my dad, who never went to school for fine art, and he was just hungry for it. He was always learning. He was always like, seeking out a mentor, someone in the industry, who could like help and guide him. And so I kind of went about my path in that way, to where I just like learned like school of hard knocks, right? Like I just, dove in and took as many classes and everything that I could. So that was the start of it. I rambled. Did I answer that
No,
question?
that's perfect, and that's great
Okay.
for actors that are just getting started in the business to look at the film office website, at your local film office's website for audition notices. There's Facebook pages, and trying to meet those people, even in more remote locations. There might be somebody that's a student that's studying film, or somebody that's aspiring to go to a university, or to move to a different market, or is working on their own projects, and just associating yourself with those people that are hungry. I like that
Yeah.
idea of being hungry, because it starts with that interest, but hunger is what's really going to maintain you throughout your career. You're always going to be pushing towards something, and trying to maintain your health and safety while you're doing that is very important. But having that
Right.
fire, and managing that fire throughout your life is vital.
Right, absolutely. I mean, I think of Picasso, linking it back to another fine artist. He was changing his work well into his 90s, and one of his quotes that he says, and I'm not going to get it exactly right, but it's to the effect of that the death of any great artist is when he starts imitating his own work. And I think I definitely have been in that space myself, where I've kind of I started like learning a lot and started really hungry. And then it's like, oh yeah, I know what I'm doing. I know where I'm going. I've got it. And that's just, I think that's like the worst place to be in, because when you're in a space that you're not teachable and you're not learning and growing anymore, it really resonates in the art. And I think for us to be the best actors that we can be, you have to have that vulnerability and that drive to be growing constantly and taking risk constantly. So hunger is, yeah, you're spot on. That is exactly what we need to maintain ourselves.
And especially from an actor, you don't want to see a performance where someone's just phoning it in, or someone's just cranking another product out that you've seen a million times, because there's nothing, there's just nothing there. There's nothing to connect with. It's false. The actor isn't listening, and it's one of those mediums where you can see that engagement in real time, and I think uh, having that liveliness, that engagement, is something that is overcritical. It's more than necessary in our art form.
Absolutely. I mean, and I think about it, it's like you're talking about it from an audience perspective, which is exactly right on, phoning it in. It's like there's nothing that I want to watch less than someone phoning it in, a role or a character that I've seen them do a million times, or just coming only as themselves. Of course, you always bring yourself to your work, but when it's the same like stereotypical self where you're not reaching and not pushing for anything, it gets really flat. And on the flip side, how boring as an artist too. Like, I don't want to do that. I want to surprise myself in the connection, and that means being in the moment and being present, but
Talking
that's
about
okay.
you plugging in as a professional actress increasingly into the New Mexico film industry with Sunshine Cleaning and Swing Vote, and I was just wondering if there was a project that you felt was starting to cement you as a professional actress within that industry, or possibly precipitated your move to the Los Angeles film community.
Yeah, absolutely. So being an actor, a full-time working actor, is, I like many of us out here, is my end goal. That's like the be all end all. And I think for me, in within like the work that I'd been doing, I'd been very fortunate and booked a lot of work in New Mexico. But the breakthrough really happened when I booked a recurring character on WGN America's television series Manhattan. I booked a character, Rachel Brosnahan plays like the wife of, and it's all takes place, it's period, it takes place in like 1940s Los Alamos, New Mexico, during the building and the creation of the atomic bomb. And I was on set so much for that, and really getting to like live as like a working full-time actor. So that television series for me was really like, oh my gosh, I want to do this full time. And I started looking towards Los Angeles. And then right after that, I booked a great role opposite Alexander Skarsgård in Michael Pena in a movie called War on Everyone, where I got to like play this great character who like murders her husband. Again, that seems to be my type. Um, look out.
I wonder what vibes are giving off. Jeez.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So, and I kill my husband in it, and Alexander Skarsgård ends up adopting my son. And so I booked a great role on that while I was doing my Chubbuck teacher training, and I did private coaching with Ivana Chubbuck out here on that character. And after that, it was like, okay, I kind of had maxed out, recurring characters, and then, bigger supporting roles was pretty much the level you could book up to in New Mexico at the time. And so for me, I was like, okay, well, logically, this makes sense. And honestly, too, to be vulnerable in this, I went through a breakup, and ended up selling the house that me and my boyfriend at the time had bought together. And so there was like a lot of life changing things, and I really feel like I had to make, it was a choice point, and it was like, okay, is this what you really want? And if it is, now is the time to do it. So that's really what brought me out here, and I'm so thankful for it. I mean, at the time, it's like, of course, like selling a home that you've remodeled with someone and a breakup, it's a hard thing to go through. But I felt hopeful, and now look back and I'm like, oh my gosh, I couldn't have made a better choice. Oftentimes those hard things that we go through really show us what we're made of.
Yeah. Yeah, we have to have those experiences. Those are just life experiences, aren't they?
Yeah.
And then we get to prove to ourselves through the choices that we then make who we are, and people get to see who we are through those choices that we make in those stressful situations.
Right. Absolutely.
How have you been finding Los Angeles since you did relocate?
I have been finding, I feel like Los Angeles has been one of the toughest experiences. Like I said, naturally, I'm like an introverted extrovert, right? I recharge alone. I know a lot of us can connect with that. Um, and I travel always for work. You know, I teach. That's my side hustle. And another one of my passions is teaching the technique that I use. So I travel a lot for that. But really, I think I was talking and laughing with some friends. I didn't settle into my Los Angeles swing until about year 4. It was really challenging for me. I felt overwhelmed and, kind of had thoughts of like, what am I doing? I was like so busy in the New Mexico market. And then you come out here and it's a little bit like starting over. You know, you're building new connections, new relationships. And now I feel like if I was to encapsulate like my Los Angeles experience, I feel like it has created like in me the artist that I needed to become. So it made me fight for those things. I had to really decide, is this what I really want? Okay, then what does that mean I need to do? You know, and I found writing through moving here. I found directing through moving here. And really tons of training, so much incredible training in this city and also other people who I think of as like heroes, other people who are doing the same thing, and really fighting to create great work and great lives for themselves. And I think that that's inspiring. It's been really inspiring, but it's also been really challenging. I mean, again, just being vulnerable. I'm sharing this stuff because I don't want people to feel like they're alone out there. I had a mental breakdown. Like I got attacked by a guy on Ventura Boulevard and had a mental breakdown and almost went home, back to New Mexico. I guess it was like a year and a half ago. And I'm so thankful I didn't. You know, I'm so thankful that I had family and friends who loved me and helped like support me through that. um, and I was able to like rebuild through therapy and meditation and a lot of self work and a lot of support from my tribe was able to kind of carry through that tough time, you know. So yeah, it's been. I hope, and I don't want to be discouraging to anyone. I just want people to know that if they're going through a hard time or if they're feeling discouraged out here, it's like there's a reason for that. You know, we're in the Olympics of doing the kind of work we want to do. So um, finding people who love and support you, getting the help that you need. If you have any kind of like, I know myself, I personally struggle with anxiety and depression, and it just went through the roof when I moved out here. So if you do struggle with those things, really getting the help that you need, because if you aren't a healthy whole human, you can't be a healthy working artist. You know, you see people self-destruct all the time.
You sure do. Thank you, Rebecca, for being so vulnerable and talking about those things, because I do run across so many different actors that you can tell they either talk about it openly and they don't know what to do about it, or they're cloaking it. And as a self-described introverted extrovert, it can be doubly hard when you do find a little bit more of that self-help by removing yourself from others. And so uh, even close friends cannot think anything's wrong because you're just you're just
Hiding.
doing you. You're still, yeah, you're not quite in the picture, you're not quite out of the picture, but you go home, you're not accountable to somebody every night or even once a week. And that's kind of a a big question that I love asking people that I bring on the podcast is on a weekly basis, how do they not only plug in to this ever changing industry, but how do they keep healthy for themselves when they're living in such a fragmented and spread out market?
Yeah, that's a great question, and yeah, I think that's great to talk about too. I know for me, I have like a spiritual business coach that I work with, and not prescribing to any one religion, but they come from like a spiritual place, right? And so I work with a spiritual business coach who helps keep me focused. I think accountability for me, whether it's through friends, a therapist, a coach, if even if you have if you even if you don't have any money, I have a dear friend of mine, Courtney Cunningham, who is also an acting coach as well, and we meet up every week and we just do our acting work. We have 2 or 3 hours on a Saturday where we just have worked on scenes all week long. We do self tapes. So really finding those people who help keeping you like feeling like an artist and holding you accountable is huge. But I think on a more personal level for me, meditation, because of my anxiety, and anxiety is what I think I deal with the most. And then that leads to depression if I don't deal with it. And LA is so high energy all the time. They're just the number of people that are here, right? It's like the traffic, the number of people, the go, go, go of our schedules. So meditation for me, a 30-minute morning meditation, a visualization meditation, and a 30-minute evening meditation is something that was introduced into my life about 2 years ago. And that has been totally life changing. Also, eating clean food, not a lot of junk and sugar, not just because we want to look good as artists, but really because it affects my mental capacity. I get depressed, I feel down. So eating clean food. And I want to say, I want to give like a disclaimer, I don't always do this. Like, I definitely have my days where I just like Netflix and chill and eat nothing but trash. But to stay healthy and stay
We
my
need
my
those
best
days
self.
too. Yeah,
Yes, right?
that
Balance. It's all
medicates a
about
different
balance.
part of us.
Totally, totally. Yeah, yeah. And I love that just as much. So I think really kind of keeping that balance also for me, it's really important to get out in nature, get outside of the city, or if you can't get outside of the city, we've got so many beautiful hiking options. Or another thing that I love too, it's like I play music. I told you that I play music, and I have people that I love in my life who I play music with. That feeds the artist in me. So, really sitting down and taking time to figure out like what feeds you as a human, what feeds you as an artist. I know writing music is still a big part, even though I don't play a ton live. I was part of a musical duo that I played quite a bit for a while out here. But even not playing out in public, just playing for myself at home, writing, reading, going to, exercise, any kind of exercise or dance classes, like what's feeding the artist in me? Because if I can feed, art feeds art. So if I can feed that, then when I come to my acting work, I come refueled and come a happier, more fulfilled person, not coming from like a desperate space or a bitter space, where I'm like, why am I not booking these gigs? Blah, 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 so and so booked these gigs. And it's like, if I'm filling myself up, then I don't worry about that.
Yeah, we have to be filled. We can't be relying on the effect that we have going out into the world because we can't control that, and we can't let our health rely on that result that we cannot control because it's going to be erratic, and then our health is going to be erratic. And
Yes.
like you're
Yeah.
saying, even though you're an introvert, you're still trying to find those what you say. I need to have that person in my life to go over scripts with this Saturday, and not in a business sense, but just as an artist, purely as an artist, not letting the business again eclipse you. I think that keeps coming back in this episode. The idea of the business not eclipsing your artistry, taking your music and just playing with a friend, but making sure that you do keep in contact with that friend. Go over to their place, have them come over to your place. Maybe don't exhibit it. Maybe never cross that threshold of turning it into a business because then you start introducing those ideas of stress and anxiety again. You
Right.
start manipulating your artistry, and you go, wait. I was using this to help me de-stress. I can't help use this to contribute to my overall, poor health. You have to
Right.
find those things that are on the side, those sidebars that are supporting that whole platform for yourself in these, especially in these larger markets.
Right. Yeah. And I think, you brought up something great, talking about getting together with friends if you are an introvert. And I know lots of us as artists are. So if you are an introvert, starting up, I started a writers group out here and we ended up producing a teaser trailer for a television series that we're like pitching and moving out into the world now. You never know what's going to come of these things. And like you said, you shouldn't do it for like an end result or to make a business of it. But it just happens when you find people who are like minded that you want to create together. So maybe have a writers group, just have a smorgasbord, have people bring, like kind of like a potluck, right? Like bring a
Mm.
snack, everybody bring a snack, and then read scripts. It gives you an excuse to write every week, gives you an excuse to do your acting work, and you don't know who's going to come up in your group, who's going to be busy, who's going to be working. I look at my best friend Hannah, and she's now working full time as a writer director in Los Angeles and has been for a couple of years. And it's like, that's so beautiful and so inspiring. And it's like, you don't know who of your friends, of these people that you love and support, who's going to come up. And so we're all supporting each other in that and really coming from an authentic place of doing it for the love of doing it. And if you're not doing it for that, then why are you doing it, right? Life is short. I want to enjoy my life. I want to be happy. And I think that was the choice point that I had to make when I had that mental break. My family was really worried. And then my mom was like, I'm going to come get you. My sister's like, you can come live with me in Seattle. I mean, it was like hilarious, really, now that I think about it. But it's like, you know, I came to a choice point that was like, wait a minute, I've got to enjoy every day of my life. And if I'm not enjoying it, then I should be doing something else. And yeah, I think that that's huge. Not to ramble, but there's this great story, and I can't remember the name of the author, but he's this famous science fiction writer. And he was giving a talk, and he tells this story. He was giving this talk at like a book signing, and a man in the audience stood up and raised his hand, and he was like, "Hi, I just have a question for you. I was, wondering why, like I've been working the same amount of time that you have. I've been working for the last 20 years and I haven't had any success. I keep plugging away at it. Life's been, really hard. I've had a lot of tragedy happen that slowed me down in my journey." And the author who was talking to him said, and the man said, do you have any advice for me? And the author who was talking to him said, I am so sorry for your loss. I am so sorry that you have had a really hard time and haven't found the success that you want to find. My advice to you, sir, would be for you to give up. And there was like silence in the crowd. Everyone was quiet because it's like, what are you saying? Here's this guy who just told you his whole dream is to be a writer, and you're telling him to give up. And then the author said, and I also want to add to that, if you find when you walk away from it that you can't not do it, that you have to come back to it just for the love of it, then I would encourage you to come back to it, keep writing, and keep doing the work. And I think I really found myself in that space of really having to look at my life. And the truth is, I can't imagine doing anything else. I love it. I would work a million side gigs to be able to do this for the rest of my life. And I think that's like where we have to be at with it, unconditional love for the work.
Thanks for listening to the Hollywood Actor Podcast. If you enjoy this content, don't forget to rate and review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening.